Hi everyone, I hope you guys are having a great weekend. Today we're going to be trying on the Hourglass Ambient Lighting palette. Similar to the other palettes they have released, I think this is a limited edition one. The one that I got is obviously the Dragon palette. It is the lightest one out of the 3 options in this release. Apart from the Dragon one, the other 2 options are the Lotus Flower and the Evil Eye. They also have a dual-ended brush with this release, but I didn't get it just because it didn't look fluffy enough to me. So moving on, this is the palette itself. It's got a good weight to it and it does feel quite sturdy. I love the gorgeous cover. As you can see, this is brand new. It's still got the plastic sticker on it. So I got this from the Hourglass USA website itself. I got it shipped all the way to Singapore and in total it cost me about 160 Singapore dollars. I actually bought this quite early on when Hourglass first released it. And at that time, Sephora Singapore wasn't carrying it yet. And from what I can see, they only carry the Dragon and the Evil Eye palettes. If you get this from Sephora Singapore now, it's definitely cheaper than shipping all the way from Hourglass USA. Together with my order, Hourglass also gave me some samples of their Phantom Volumizing Glossy Balm. The sample contains 4 colors with a little brush. So opening the palette, it's got magnetic closure, which I really like. These are the colors in the pan. Just look at that. Isn't that completely gorgeous? So on the back of the pan, they have a brief description of what each color does. Obviously, the lighter 2 colors are the overall finishing powders. These 2 are the blushes. This is what they call the bronzer or soft bronze color. And this last one is a highlighter. So these are the swatches on my hand. These 2 are the finishing powders. These next 2 are the blushes. This one leans a bit more coral and brighter. This color in the pan looks like a cool tone muted pink brown, but on my hand it actually looks quite pink. Right at the bottom here, we've got the bronzer color. It is quite subtle on my skin. And lastly here, we've got the highlighter color, which is actually the most pigmented in the pan. So for these colors, I feel like I had to swatch quite heavily onto my hand for the colors to show, other than the highlighter, which showed up almost immediately. So let's get to the exciting part, which is actually applying the powders. I'm going to do 1 blush color on each cheek so that you guys can compare, totally at the expense of me looking crazy. I'll start with the more coral based one and I'm just going to use my NARS Kabuki brush. This is actually my favorite brush right now for applying blusher because it just gives such a beautiful diffused look that's very natural. I find that a lot of brushes that are very dense just end up leaving a patch of blush on my face. Can you see the color? The product actually builds up quite beautifully. Now I'm going to apply the pink tone on my other cheek. These are the 2 colors on my cheeks. I think the coral one actually gives more of a sheen. None of the colors in this palette are matte, but the pink is definitely more muted and has less of a metallic shine, if that makes sense. So just showing you guys the colors again. Between the 2, the coral showed up pretty much straight away when I applied it, whereas the pink I had to layer 2 to 3 times for the color to show. Now let's go in with the bronzer color. I might actually try to use it to contour my cheekbones. Just under my cheek line here a little bit. There's only a slight amount of warmth in it. I think it's quite a cool toned brown. Applying a little bit along my jawline because I've got quite an angled jaw. So I've got the bronzer on one side of my face. There's definitely a slight contour effect on this side compared to the other. At first when I was swatching this bronzer on my hand, I did think it was too light for my skin tone, but now that I've applied it to my face, it actually does show up. So you can see the difference with this cheek that has the bronzer compared to this one that doesn't. Now let's go in with the highlight shade. This one was quite pigmented, so I will try to start lightly. I'm just gonna put it on top of my cheekbones. For those who know me, especially my friends, as a makeup junkie, some of you may be surprised to know that this is actually my first Hourglass palette. So the highlighter is on the high points of my cheekbones. It definitely is an obvious highlighter. It's not very subtle. If you have textured skin or slightly large pores, which is what I have on this area, I think the highlighter actually accentuates the texture. This highlighter is definitely the most reflective one out of all the colors in the palette. Now for the finishing powders, I'll use each color on one side of my face so hopefully we can see the difference. So I'll start with the whiter shade first. I'm gonna go in with this same Kabuki brush from NARS and just dust it on my face. So the finishing powders are very subtle. I've put it on this side of my face. In person, I can only see a slight reflectiveness on this side of my face compared to the other. So I definitely think you don't have to worry about overdoing it. Now I'm going to go in with the slightly more skin tone color and see if that makes any difference. So this is the final look. For the finishing powders, the whiter one is actually slightly more reflective than the warmer color. The warmer color only gave my skin a very slight shimmer, so if you wanted something more natural or you're going under harsh sunlight, this would probably give your skin a lit from within glow without actually looking like you have makeup on. The whiter color being more reflective also accentuates texture a little bit more. So after trying my first ambient lighting palette, I think the product is nice. If you're looking for a subtle glow, this does do just that. The colors, especially the blush and the bronzer, are all quite soft and buildable, with the exception of the highlighter, which goes on quite obvious. However, given that my skin does have some texture and larger pores around this area, I also do feel like the powders does accentuate that. I can see this working really well at night, at dinners, and I think for photo taking or in front of the camera, this will work great. So those are my thoughts on this palette. Thanks for joining me guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye!